This video is intended for people who can't do a single push-up or for people who struggle to just do a few reps. The push-up is a really popular exercise, and it's one that, for people who can't do it, really wish they could do it. The problem is, if you can't do a single push-up, it's very ineffective to try to train to be able to do the push-up by just doing a push-up. It's like someone completely new to weightlifting who wants to squat 300 pounds, and in their attempts to develop the strength to do that, they just try squatting 300 pounds. But of course, it's very ineffective. It's way too big of a jump, and there needs to be a gradual progression to get to that point. So that's what I'm going to present in this video, is a clear, gradual progression to be able to do a regular push-up on flat ground. Before I get started, I want to make note about a very popular exercise that people use to try to progress to be able to do a regular push-up, which is the from the knees push-up modification, which you can see here. But the problem with the from the knees position is that the mechanics involved with it are quite different than what would exist in a real push-up. So here are some angles involved with the traditional push-up. You can see the angle of the arm is relatively vertical, and the angle of the torso is relatively horizontal, especially when compared to the angles involved with the modified push-up, which you can see here, the from the knees position. You can see that the angle of the arm is set back, and you can see that the angle of the torso is way less closer to horizontal than with a traditional push-up. And going back to the picture of the traditional push-up, you can see that the leverage is quite different. You are supporting your body from your shoulder, through your hips, through your knees, to your ankle. But when you go to the modified position, you are just supporting from your shoulder to your knees. And when you cut the lever that much shorter, it makes a big difference in the mechanics, especially when that lever is angled more vertical. So there's a lot less core stabilization and really total body stabilization, and the overall pattern of muscle activation with the from the knees position is not specific enough to a real push-up. So essentially what I'm saying here is that the from the knees position is not an effective way to progress to a real push-up because the mechanics differ too greatly, and that there's no real progression. It just goes from the knees to on the toes, and for a lot of people that's too big of a jump. So all that being said, what is an effective way to progress to a regular push-up is the utilization of a step-up platform with risers underneath. And when you use this setup, you can do an incline push-up, and over time you can gradually remove risers from underneath the platform. So you're gradually, progressively moving closer and closer from a more vertical torso position down to a more horizontal position, allowing your body to develop the strength to eventually do a regular push-up on flat ground. And this method of progressing to a regular push-up is more effective than using the from the knees position because A, the mechanics are more similar to that of a regular push-up in that your knees are extended, supporting yourself on your toes, so you are learning to control that long lever as you do the push-up. And B, you have way more steps of progression. Instead of just going from the knees to on the toes, you can have as many as 12 steps that you could progressively move closer and closer to the regular push-up on flat ground. Here's the main concept behind this progression. The more vertical your torso position is, the lesser percentage of your own body weight you have to lift. And the more horizontal your torso position is, the greater percentage of your own body weight you have to lift. This kind of progression closely relates to how most people do strength training, in that you would add 5 to 10 pounds of weight to an exercise per week. So the incline push-up utilizes this progression. So you start with a high position of the platform. You have several risers underneath. Over time, you remove the risers so that your torso position becomes more and more horizontal, which means you're progressively lifting a greater and greater percentage of your own body weight. And through this progression, you develop the strength to be able to do a push-up on flat ground. There are a couple safety precautions you should take when doing the incline push-up with the step-up platform. So if you are using 8 or more risers below the step-up platform, make sure to press the whole setup flush against the wall to make sure that it doesn't tip forward. And when you have the whole setup placed against the wall, make sure that you don't lower your head into the wall when you do the push-ups, because that is a danger. Once you progress to the point where you're using 7 or less risers below the platform, you can go ahead and move the whole setup away from the wall to make sure that you don't hit your head. For this whole incline push-up progression to eventually be able to do a regular push-up on flat ground, I've actually written out an entire program that you can use to achieve that goal. And the link to the program is in the description below. The The program is simple, it's effective, it just involves doing incline push-ups 2 times per week. It's very specific, it tells you exactly where you need to start and how you need to progress. And it does take time and discipline, but it will get you to achieve the goal of being able to do an actual push-up, and not just one, but several sets of multiple reps. I think it's important for me to address the most common mistakes in the push-up. If you are using the incline push-up to progress to doing a flat push-up, you want to make sure that you are using good form. So I'm just going to address the 2 most common errors I see in the push-up and how to correct those errors. So here's the first error that I commonly see, which is an excessive arching of the lower back. This typically occurs because the individual is not engaging their core muscles to stabilize the spine. If the abdominal muscles aren't engaged, the spine gets stability by having the vertebrae just press against each other. And this is not a healthy position to use when doing the push-up, and it could cause injury to the lower back over time. To correct the excessive arching or sagging of the lower back, here are 3 techniques that you can use. So number 1, when you are in the extended top position of the push-up, you can actively press your shoulder blades and hands forward into the ground, and this will help engage the abdominal muscles. And secondly, and probably most importantly, you want to directly brace your abdominals. So you want to engage those muscles and create a flat surface from your lower ribs to your upper pelvis. And you want to maintain this flat surface for the entire duration of your set, whether you're at the bottom, middle, or top of the rep. And for the third technique, you can squeeze your glutes, which is going to posteriorly rotate your pelvis, which will simultaneously flatten out your lower back and reduce that arch, as well as create that flat surface in your abdominals from your lower ribs to your upper pelvis. Ideally, you want to use all 3 techniques at the same time to ensure a stable, flat lower back. On to the second most common mistake I see in the push-up, which is the elbows flaring out away from the ribs. There are 2 main consequences to this technique error. The first one is that it creates instability within the shoulder joint. Anytime that you have instability within a joint, it increases the likelihood of an injury occurring within that specific joint. In addition to that, instability decreases the body's ability to transmit force. So when the elbows flare out, you are not going to be able to transmit force through the shoulder joint and into the ground as well as you could, meaning that you are going to have a weaker push-up. And the second consequence of the elbows flaring out is that the pectoral muscles or the chest muscles aren't going to be able to contribute to the exercise as well as they should be, and again, this leads to a weaker push-up. Fixing the elbows flaring out is pretty simple. You just have your elbows track backwards as you move down in the push-up. So when you start in the top position and you move downward, you want to focus on the movement of your elbow going backwards towards your feet as opposed to flaring out away from the ribs or moving closer towards your ears. I'm going to show a couple pictures that will help demonstrate the ideal movement of the elbow. So here we have a line that on one end starts right behind the wrist and it goes straight up through the arm, and this is showing the initial start position of the elbow. And now I'm going to move to the bottom position here. You can see in this picture. Now that line is still positioned right behind the wrist, exactly where it started, but you notice that the position 2, or the finish position, is quite a bit further back than the start position, and this is the ideal elbow movement that you want. If you had an issue of elbows flaring out, you would not see such a great distance between 1 and 2. Well, that does it for this instructional video. If you're someone who can't perform a single push-up, I hope that this video helped you understand how to effectively progress to the point of being able to do a regular push-up on flat ground. And again, I offer a specific program that is going to give you a direct path to achieve that goal. And the link to that program is in the description below. Thanks for watching.